So I've been on a real kick of building out critical hit fellas lately. The art of guaranteed crits has been lost these days, but as it turns out, Blaziken might just be one of the best to do it. So what's really great about Blaziken, especially with the strat that I'm going to try to pull off, is not only its firefighting typing, but the fact that it's a great mixed attacker with base 120 physical attack and 110 special. And of course, its broken speed boost ability giving it +1 speed at the end of every single turn. We can pull out a focus energy against a mon we know we can take an attack from, and since we've equipped a scope lens held item, now every single attack is guaranteed to get a critical hit. We can now slap people with stab 130 power overheat, which absolutely melts people. Moves like this along with Draco Meteor are only this strong in base power due to the downfall of the -2 to special attack after use. But since critical hits ignore the stat drops, it doesn't even end up mattering. As we continue to stack speed boosts, we quickly become faster than just about everything, and if not, we got a little protect action to stall out a turn just for another speed boost. We've also got stab close combat, which works well for Pokemon who prefer to be hit on the special side, and overall, Blaziken is an extremely fun Pokemon to take advantage of this strategy, and so today, it's time for the chicken to fry you. Ladies and gentlemen, the kickin' chicken is finally back. It almost seems too good to be true that there's a guy that can boost its speed every single turn, hit you on the physical and special side really hard with both stab options, and get a critical hit every single time. Blaziken has truly been Game Freak's favorite ever since they gave it the speed boost ability, which is insane. And guess what? You could be my favorite if you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And with that, let's just jump into the match. Alright, so as my opponent decides to lead off with the Greninja, my floating dirt tiger prefers to not die an icy death just immediately. So I figure I should probably get on out of here, and the only thing I have to really switch in to something like an Ice Beam is going to be Koala. Now I am at least assault vested, so it shouldn't do too much, and then I can threaten with either a knockoff or maybe get a little body slam with a para action going. So I come in, I'm sleepy, I cannot be statused. They do go for the Ice Beam here, as expected, going to turn into the Ice type, does do a decent little chunk. It's also going to reveal the Life Orb here, but we've got some good data on the Greninja in general. We know that it's not going to be Ash Greninja, we got the Life Orb action there. I decided to just go for a knockoff because I figure they probably switch, and sometimes it's nice to just get rid of an item on whatever wants to come in here. So it turns out to be the Torkoal, and that's not ever a bad option to just go for a knockoff on. Gonna get rid of its Heat Rock, not gonna be able to keep the sun up. It turns out, as it comes in, gets that drought going, it's actually leftovers, which means, you know, no snack for you, Mr. Turtle. I decide I'm gonna switch out here. I'm thinking they probably just set up Stealth Rock. Well, I could just Rapid Spin on it. I'm gonna try to conserve Koala just a little bit. I can also freely go back into the Lando here and be able to get up my own Stealth Rock and also threaten it with like an Earth Power. Now, it turns out they just go for the Will-O-Wisp, but he's got Balls of Steel or just doesn't know that Koala cannot be status. So as they wisp on the Koala, in comes the Landorus, who isn't really that worried about being burnt, to be honest. I am more special oriented with just Earth Power. But I realize now they're just gonna click Stealth Rock here, right? So instead of allowing that freely to happen, I'm gonna taunt, be like, hey, come at me, turtle. So as they did try to go for the Stealth Rock, it's gonna go ahead and stop that, which is always really nice. And at this point, I've got a couple different options. Either I go for an Earth Power or I try to set up Stealth Rock of my own. And immediately as I click the Stealth Rock, I realized, you know, I probably shouldn't have done that. They end up swapping. They are going to bring in the Espeon. Annoyingly, this thing's going to magic bounce them. And while I block their own Stealth Rock, they're just going to bounce my own right at me. So, you know, I end up with Stealth Rock on my side regardless. And you kind of hate to see it. So the good news is Espeon probably doesn't have an opportunity to knock me out here. So I'm feeling like I can just get a U-turn off. Even Burnt going to do some decent chip. They just go for the Psychic here. That does hurt a little bit, but it's mostly fine. I can now U-turn for some decent chip, even being burnt. And now I can go into whatever I want against the Espeon here. So the thing about Espeon is it's quick. It's not going to have the opportunity to really knock things out, but I decide it seems like a pretty decent opportunity just to go right back into Koala. Because as I come in, I can Rapid Spin away the Stealth Rock that I just worked so hard to put on my own side. The Sunlight is going to go away, which is nice. That only really affects things like the Photosynthesis on the Fluttermane in general, really. But I decided to just go for the knockoff here in case they want to heck around and stay in. They do just end up switching right back into the Torkoal, which is not necessarily a matchup I'm super worried about. Again, I can Rapid Spin away rocks all day. This thing is not going to have super great longevity. I decided to just go for a Rapid Spin here. I don't know what they want to do. They tried to Will-O-Wisp on me last time. I'm just seeing, hey, maybe they try that again. I do get rid of the rocks here, so no harm done. It turns out, though, they just go for the flamethrower. So in the sun, that is going to hurt. Luckily, the assault vest is going to ease the pain just a little bit there. But now as I can go for a body slam, I just figure Koala is basically probably used up at this point. So I do at least rapid spin away the rocks, and letting the Koala go down here is a decent opportunity to now gain some momentum on a revenge switch and try to get a little something going. So the good thing about the amount of damage that I do have on the Torkoal is now Blaziken is in a spot where I grab a knockout just with an overheat. Especially I can take advantage of the sun being up, and it kind of just helps me out. So knowing that I probably have a free turn here, if I'm them, I just go for Stealth Rock again, and that's kind of what I'm looking for here. It gives me a free turn to set up the focus energy. I don't have to worry about taking an Earth Power, and now my energy is focused. Not only that, but I'm going to continually boost up my speed, and we're going to be in a spot where Blaziken is going to be faster than everything, and now I get crits on every single hit. So as I go for the overheat, it misses, because of course it does. And they take this opportunity to go for the Clear Smog. Now, that's actually an interesting play there. Clear Smog, it does not affect focus energy. I kind of had to think about it for a second. Considering focus energy is not, in fact, a stat boost, that does not get rid of it, which is great. Basically, all it does is gets rid of that one speed boost I had. I can then go for the overheat on the next turn, still get my critical hit. That takes care of the Torkoal. And while I drop my special attack, of course, it does not matter when everything will be a crit. So at this point, I do get another speed boost. So the Clear Smog, really not that big of a deal. I'm out here boosted. I will be only at +1. So the bad thing is Flutter Mane is still scary, especially if it's booster energy. As it comes in, it is not going to be booster energy, but I'm going to go ahead and pull out a Protect for a little bit of insurance here, because as I can get another speed boost on this turn, I can first of all scout out what they want to do if they want to pull out a Terra. They end up just going for the Moonblast there. That is totally fine. I blocked that bad boy, and just like that, we are now back to +2 speed. And as I'm looking at it here, Flutter Mane at full health without any Stealth Rock chip has a chance to live an overheat crit. But one way that I can ensure that this thing gets his ass burnt to a crisp is by going for the Terra Fire. I can bust out the old Chandelier Dome, and just like that, that's going to boost up my fire damage even further, to the point where, yeah, nothing is gonna be enjoying that. Even though the sun isn't up anymore, a Terra boosted overheat with a guaranteed crit should surely be enough to knock out a Flutter Mane. It is going to be able to do it with that crit there. Down goes the Flutter, which is always great to see a Flutter Mane go down before it even gets any damage off on anything. Literally the scariest damn mon in the game. And the icing on the cake is that I get another speed boost, and of course we are faster than anything that might even be Choice Scarfed at this point. So while I get a satisfying knockout there with the Blaziken, I'm feeling like as they go into the Garchomp, the bad thing is about this, without any chip damage, I'm not going to have enough to knock this thing out. So I decide, with Blaziken still having some pretty good value, I can end up saving that thing for later. Now I decide my best option is to go into the Lando here. I can live a Stealth Rock switch in. I can also grab an Intimidate, and if they go for an Earthquake, I also have the opportunity to potentially outspeed if this thing isn't running max speed. So if they do go for the Earthquake, Air Dirt's over here floating, just hanging on by a thread, being burnt as hell. But my best bet here is to just see what happens, essentially. Is I end up outspeeding, reveals the thing's not going to be max speed Chomp. I can get a little Earth Power there for some honestly super helpful chip. That puts it at a point where I'm like, you know, now Blaziken isn't really looking too bad with it if I can somehow get a focus energy back up. But in general, I just need some damage on the Chomp. So as they do finish me off, they also have to take a little Rocky Helmet touch, which is always nice. And now the Chomp ain't looking super healthy after all. So while I don't have a whole lot of things to deal with the Garchomp, I decided to bring in the Hydrapple. This is because I know I should be able to take at least one attack from the Garchomp, and that should allow me to just finish it off with the Draco Meteor. It's gonna hurt, that's for sure, but I should be able to live one attack. And as I end up going for the Draco Meteor here, they decide to switch into the Kitty. Espeon comes in, gets absolutely fucking destroyed by some meteors, like the damn dinosaurs out here. And while that does knock out Mr. Kitty, that is gonna actually activate my Eject Pack. Now this Hydrapple is mostly supposed to just get some really big damage on attacks like that and then eject pack into one of my setup sweepers safely. But as I grab the knockout there, it's kind of unfortunate because now I'm forced to go into whatever I want, and then they can see that matchup and decide accordingly. So as I decide to bring in Swalot, the problem is now I'm just a big sitting duck for Garchomp's ass to just come back in, who is sitting at half, which is great. But now I can't risk switching into the Viv to just predict an Earthquake here. So I decide, depending on what this thing wants to do, I'm going to go for the Stuffed Cheeks. This Swalot is meant to just do some crazy nonsense with Stuffed Cheeks, but it turns out they don't overpredict. They do just go for the Earthquake there, which surprisingly I live, which activates my Starf Berry, doubling my defenses. But now as I Stuff Cheeks, I no longer have a berry to stuff into my fat ass cheeks. So The Swalot here was basically just kind of a wash at this point. The best thing it can do for me now is just kind of die and allow me to, you know, you just get a switch in against the Chomp. So they do just finish me off with the Dragon Claw. That's fine. Swalot will have its day. This thing is not easy, but it can be hilarious with Stuffed Cheeks and a Starfberry. You'll see. So at this point, I've got 3 Mons left. While they finish that thing off, I can now go back into the Hydrapple. The plan remains the same. I can, you know, live 1 attack from Chomp. Especially regenerated, I come in. I'm just sitting at like 1, you know, Stealth Rock switch in. So as I go for the Draco Meteor here, I'm fully expecting to be able to live a Dragon Claw and then just meteor this asshole. So it turns out they are going to pull out the worst possible Terra for me to see. They go for the Terra Fairy, which is incredibly unfortunate because now they can outspeed, go for that Dragon Claw. While I do live like I expected, it now doesn't do me any help because I go for a Fickle Beam and now it no longer affects this fairy type guy. So in the present time, yeah, that's unfortunate. Good Terra on there and they can finish me off with the Draco Meteor. But now as I'm looking at it, considering Fella is now just full fairy type, that is actually going to end up helping me out. So it screws over my Apple. But what that does is now that opens the door for Blaziken to come in, and considering I can go ahead and outspeed the guy, I can now just hit it with a neutral overheat instead of a resisted one. And with that Terra Fire, I should just be close enough in range to knock it out. So I go for the Protect here just to guarantee not only that I outspeed, but also literally why not? They go for an Earthquake, not gonna work. And we're just a couple of fellas with some crystallized hats ready to have hopefully a nice little time here. So the best thing I can do, go for an Overheat. If it misses, I will jump in a bath with a Toaster. Instead, it does connect. And luckily for me, a nice little boosted Overheat here is gonna be enough to knock out the Chomp. So the amount of chip damage we got on the thing was super helpful. Put it just in range for that Overheat to clutch it out. And while I'm feeling pretty good at this point, I'm in a situation where Blaziken does not have the focus energy, but looking at what they've got left, Blaziken just like that has become kind of a win condition because now I'm at +2 speed. And what they don't know is I am also a mixed attacker. Now as they bring in Greninja, I will be faster than the thing. They have no longer the ability to Terra out of this. I can just beat the shit out of the frog, and that is going to be a super effective hit, able to knock it out. So while we drop our special attack, boom, now I just have some big ol' stab physical attack, and that's going to be enough to knock out the Greninja, which is actually amazing. Speed Boost Blaziken is so fun. There's so many different things you can do with this damn guy. But final mon also is going to be the Scizor, which is also, you know, a fantastic place to be if you're a freaking fire chicken. So worst case scenario is Choice Banded Bullet Punch is able to knock me out. I decided to roll the dice on it not being Choice Banded. They do go for the Bullet Punch. It's not quite going to be enough to knock me out. And even with my special attack cut in half, I can pull out the Overheat 4 times super effective with that Terra boost is going to be enough to knock out big meaty Claws. And that is actually a crazy little late game sweep there by the Blaziken. We had early game, little almost sweep, little late game finish. And now Buddy knows the true power of the spicy chicken. So that's going to do it for the battle. That was a really interesting game. Blaziken the GOAT. But that's also now going to bring us into game number 2 because we are we're definitely not close to done yet. So look, if you've stuck around this far into the video, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really does help out the channel. You probably forgot to click the button. And if you're still listening, you might as well hit it. So my opponent has an interesting squad over here. And with that, let's just jump into the next game. All right, so this time as my opponent decides to lead off with the Primarina, I am, of course, once again leading off with the Landorus, and this is also a bad time to be hit by some ice. So the Primarina lead is basically just a counter to the Landorus. Now, the good thing is I can outspeed. I can go for a U-turn, and when in doubt, switch in Kamala on special attacks, basically. Now, I don't know exactly what this thing is working with, but I do know that I should be able to take an attack decently with Kamala, and then, you know, the plan remains the same. I can go for either a knockoff, or just body slam some stuff and just be a little Koala. Honestly, I love Kamala is a fun little fella. So they do end up going for the Moonblast here. Got to do a decent little bit of damage there. Chunks me a bit. I mean, hey, it would hurt. You would not be happy either if like somebody threw the moon at your face. So as I go for the body slam here, they do end up swapping. They're going to conserve the Primarina, which is a problem, and that thing is just very scary in the back. But as they end up bringing the Swalot, first of all, the funniest thing is, I've literally, in the past 250 games, haven't seen a Swalot once. And now, as soon as I start using one, I run into a Swalot. The hell's up with that? But Body Slam does not get the para. Also doesn't do great damage to the thing. And I'm like, well, I can just go back into Landorus and try to get my Stealth Rock up while threatening this thing with Earthquake. I mean, most people just expect physical. While I do have the Earth power, I'm just going to basically go into Lando here because If it's going to be like a body press set, probably not going to want to touch the Landorus, and we should be relatively fine. So they do go for the body press, which is sweet. It got to be a wild sensation getting body pressed by a weird pile of sludge with a mustache. But it does take some Rocky Helmet there, which is great. As it's eating some leftovers, it's still not feeling super healthy. So, of course, I am going to take this opportunity to set up some Stealth Rock. Going to be important later, the old foundation of some pointy rocks to make sure that people's feet do not have a good time switching in. And as they bring in the three-headed dragon, this thing is relatively scary here. So here's the thing. I get up my Stealth Rock. Now, I don't know exactly what type of Hydreigon this is going to be. You never really do know. It could be Scarf, could be Setup, could be a Scale Shot. You never know. I decided to just go for a U-turn here. If it Draco Meteors, I should be able to take one. They do go for the Draco Meteor. As its biggest damage, I am able to live, which is great because Landorus does a couple things well, and hitting things hard with U-turn is always feeling pretty good whenever you can grab a super effective U-turn. So I chunked the Hydreigon there as I'm able to live. Luckily, I can switch back in and have some utility for an Intimidate switch in later. But I'm feeling like, you know what time it is? It feels like a pretty decent time to go into the freaking Butterfly. So I bring in the Demon. That's because this thing is Pokedex number 666, and it could not be for a more fitting Pokemon, the most evil Butterfly around. So they are going to end up swapping out there. The reason why I can go into an easy setup on here is because with minus special attack, Hydreigon likely doesn't want to stay in. And as they end up bringing in the Toedscruel, this thing's first of all creeping me out, but it's going to now have to watch me dance. So I go for that Quiver Dance, and also I'm feeling like this is an interesting switch in here, right? Because if you go into a mon that, I mean, both of my stabs are super effective here, and after a little Quiver Dance, I'm looking like I have an easy knockout with a Hurricane. It does kind of feel too good to be true, though, so I'm expecting this thing to go for a Terra, and I'm just like, you know what, I'm going to get a little greedy with a second Quiver Dance. Why not? If it's going to Terra, I could go for 2 and then see what it does, but it turns out it doesn't Terra. I could have just gone right for the Hurricane and killed it, but nope, they now can click Spore, which is always nice. So puts my ass to sleep. My wings are flapping slow, and while I'm Quiver Dance the hell up, now I feel like I probably don't want to switch out because this is still a fine matchup. Well, it's probably just going to rapid spin away my rocks here. That's just going to allow me a turn to burn some sleep, and as soon as the Butterfly wakes up, all hell is going to break loose, literally. Or at least, you know, that's kind of my hope. So they do rapid spin away my rocks, and now they decide to switch out. They're probably like, yeah, you know, I can't actually touch this thing, which is fair. And they end up switching back into Primarina here. So it comes in for free without rocks, but I do end up getting the early wake, which is fantastic. And as I go for the Hurricane, that is the most assault vested ass looking Primarina I've ever seen. +2 special attack Hurricane stab does like far less than half. And I'm like, the hell, man. I can now at least go for a super effective energy ball, thinking maybe I grab a kill there. Nope. It lives with 2 HP, which is honestly frustrating because it allows them to then go for the Moonblast, which doesn't knock me out. But what it does do is, even as I'm able to finish it off with the energy ball, it puts me in range for their only priority user to likely grab a knockout here, with that being the Cinderace if it's got Sucker Punch. And immediately as they switch into the Cinderace, I'm like, yep, that fella is gonna Sucker Punch me. And as I consider wanting to Terra Blast and Terra Blast grounded, I figure, you know what, it's not really worth. I'm gonna see if they do go for the Sucker Punch. They do. Sadly, that Moonblast was the difference. It's gonna allow it to finish off the Viv, and you know, down goes the Butterfly. We almost had him with the Demon Butter, but maybe next time. So, looking at this matchup, I'm always trying to find an opportunity for something like Swalot to set up, right? So I'm like, you know what, my best bet might just be to go into the Lando now. The Cinderace is really the only thing they have that is going to be affected by an Intimidate, so I can get that thing to -1 and force them to knock me out here, or they get Stealth Rock set up on them. So if they do end up just going for the Pyro Ball, it is going to finish off the Landorus. However, what that does is now opens the door for a couple different options, and maybe seeing if I can get one of these fellas going. So I decided to try out the Swalot first. And while they do have their own Swalot in the back, which could cause me a problem, I'm going to go for the Stuffed Cheeks anyway. This thing's at -1 attack. If I can see if it wants to stay in and attack me, that would be great. My fully invested defensive ass would not mind. But they just go for the U-turn, sadly, and they're going to end up bringing in their own freaking Swalot. So, you know, again, you never see Swalot. Today we're seeing 2, which is hilarious. Now, I go for the Stuffed Cheek still, and I'm thinking, depending on how this guy's working, we might just be at a decent spot. So we get the +2 from the Starfberry, from the Stuffed Cheeks, and then the Starfberry gives us a +2 attack boost. It's always just a random boost, and we just gotta work with what we got here. So I am gonna try out a little Thief action here. Now, sadly, even a +2 defense, they go for an Earthquake, and with a critical hit, that's gonna do more than I would like, which, you know, isn't a lot, but still more than I would like. I try to bust out the Thief here, but yeah, they are rocking Sticky Hold just like I am. I figure there's a chance that it's not Sticky Hold. And while I can't really touch it with anything else, I figured the thief was worth it. If I could steal its leftovers, we might be in a spot to just slowly whittle this thing down. But nope, now I realize, as they've got the earthquake, I might as well just do what Swalot does best and probably just stay in here and let it go down. But they reveal what theirs is working with. And Swalot's a fun guy because you can do a bunch of different weird nonsense with it. Now they do go for a stockpile, so boosting up its defenses on both sides is going to make this thing an absolute pain to deal with, especially if you're me, being a Swalot who can't really touch it. So I decided, you know what time it is? I might as well bring in Blaziken here, because if there's one guy I've got that does not care about defensive stat boosts, it's my critical hit fella. So I bring in the Blaziken here just because I know surely if they stockpile once, they're going to go for it the second time. There's no reason for them to really not go for it again. So as I bring in Blaziken, they're at +2 defense and special defense, which ordinarily would not be great for me. But I also know that now, since they have the earthquake, they're probably going to click it. But luckily for me, Blaziken should be able to live a non-stab earthquake from a freaking Swalot. If Blaziken can't live this earthquake, he's going right to the buck. So this is going to allow me to go for the focus energy, which is great. They're going to bust out the earthquake. And yeah, I'm able to live. Does hurt, but as long as Blaziken is alive, that's all that really matters. It doesn't need a super big amount of health. So at this point, I've got the focus energy. I get myself a speed boost, and now I can bust out the overheat and not give a damn about your special defense boost because a critical hit just ignores that. That is going to take care of the Swalot, and boom, just like that, Blaziken is feeling ready to roll. Now, again, the thing I'm worried about is the priority with the Cinderace. Now, luckily, without going for a Terra here, being fighting type, I do resist the Sucker Punch from it, so I should be able to take one of them. Now, it kind of leaves me not wanting to click close combat on stuff, but as they end up bringing in Necrozma, first of all, I have no idea what this fella wants to do. But I do know if I can just get a knockout here, that would be nice. I do end up busting out the Terra Fire just because I want to guarantee a knockout, if I'm going to be honest. With that Terra boost, it guarantees that this thing does not live in overheat, and that feels like pretty decent value for going for the Terra here. So I obviously outspeed his slow ass, and overheat with the crit with that boost is definitely going to be enough to knock the thing out. So down goes the Necroz, but don't know what the hell this fellow was going to click, but it can now click it in the Shadow Realm. So Blaziken is chilling, kind of a little bit of a sitting duck at this point. Since I go for the Terra Fire, it feels like a Sucker Punch from Cinderace is not going to be great, but they end up bringing in the Toedscruel. This thing is weird. It comes in with its weird little tentacle hands, and I'm like, it surely, if they go into this at this point, it's gonna go for a defensive Terra. I mean, there's literally no reason why they would go into it here if it doesn't have something like Terra Water. So I decided to go for the Protect because that gives me a turn to scout out the Terra here. They do go for the Terra Water as expected, and that is a little bit of bad news for a Blaziken who now, the only real thing I can do as I Protect just to play it safe is go for a close combat. Sadly, as it doesn't have any damage on it, close combat, even with a crit, is more than likely not going to be enough. So if they try to Earth Power, that would take care of the Blaziken, but it's fine. And as I speed boost, there's not really much reason to stay in here. Again, I can close combat and get some huge damage, but it's not going to knock it out. And so I feel like Blaziken still has really good value, even if I don't come back in to get up a focus energy. So as I'm going to switch here, I feel like it feels like a pretty good opportunity just to go into the Hydrapple, right? I can take any attack Toedscruel wants to throw at me, and especially now that it's got no surprises, it's Terra Water, I can threaten it with a Leaf Storm, and that is exactly what I'm going to do. I have two options. Either I Draco Meteor or I Leaf Storm, and as I go for the Leaf Storm, they do end up swapping. Now, I definitely should have clicked Draco Meteor here. For some reason, I thought maybe they would stay in with the Toedscruel. I also figured if they do make this play and they switch into the Hydreigon here, a Leaf Storm should be enough to knock it out at the health that it was at. I overestimated the damage and underestimated the amount of health this thing was at, as the Leaf Storm is not quite enough to take care of it. Sadly, I'm now in the face of a dragon that could be a little bit of a problem. So here's the thing. I decided to go Blaziken here because there's only one real scenario here where this ends up pretty bad for Blaziken, and that's if this is a Choice Scarf Hydreigon. I decide, you know what, I'm gonna roll the dice. I'm gonna go for a Protect that's gonna get me to +1 after my speed boost, and if it is Choice Scarf, it is faster and it will be able to just outspeed me. But I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna roll it here. I always often find myself in spots where when a mon, like a highlight mon, starts to do well, I always opt to try to see if I can get the thing to do more, and sometimes that's my downfall, because as I go for the Protect here, I'm like, well, time to roll the dice. If you're Scarf, we're gonna find out. And it turns out it does outspeed, and the Dark Pulse is able to finish off the Blaziken. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to tell that this thing was Scarf, and I paid the price for it, because I should have surely, first of all, just clicked Draco Meteor versus the Toedscruel there. There's no reason why it would stay in against the Hydrapple. So you know, that was my first mistake. Second mistake going into Blaziken there, which I rolled the dice just to see if I could get Fella to do a little bit more. Sadly, it could not. But I felt like it was a worthwhile try, right? Because now at least I can go into Koala, who does not get flinched by a Dark Pulse, also doesn't do much damage. I then sit on him, and down goes the Hydreigon. So, you know, no harm, no foul, relatively, as they've now got 2 Mons left. First of all, it's going to be Cinderace. Second of all, they've got the Toedscruel sitting with the Terra Water. So, first they end up bringing in the Cinderace, and this puts me in a position where I cannot really swap. I'm like, you know, I'm probably best off just at least getting a little bit of damage here with a Sucker Punch. Maybe, why not, right? I don't have anything that really needs to switch in here. So Sucker Punch does do some decent damage there. Allows it to finish me off with a Pyro Ball, but at least I was able to take care of the Hydreigon. And now we've got ourselves in a 2v2 match, and this late game is coming real down to it. So I've obviously only got 2 options here. Now, I figure my best bet is probably to go Hydrapple, because it puts pressure on them being like, they have to predict on whether or not I'm going to go for something like the Leaf Storm, right? I also have the coverage in Earth Power, and I know that I should be able to take 1 Pyro Ball from the guy, so I decide to opt for the Earth Power here, just in case they want to stay in. Turns out, however, they do go for the U-turn. Sadly, as they're able to turn into the Bug type, that's going to do about half, which is a whole lot of chunk damage there. And now they're able to switch into freaking Toedscruel. But as the only thing that can go into being the Toedscruel is fine by me, because of the fact that, you know, it can't really touch me offensively. So as I Earth Power, it doesn't do much to it. And I figure, I'm hoping at least, that an Earth or a Leaf Storm should be enough to knock this thing out. At the range that it's at, it's basically full, and I'm just gonna go for it here. My best bet is to click that Leaf Storm again. It does not pressure me with much offense here. They decide to go for a Rapid Spin, which doesn't get rid of any hazards, but I has boosted speed. And as I do connect on a Leaf Storm, I'm really praying for a knockout here. Sadly, however, I do not get the knockout. That not killing there might just solidify the L here, but I'm gonna do everything I can. So as it lives, I'm also at a spot where now I'm like, I need to essentially be able to switch out, get a regenerator, a little bit amount of health. The problem becomes I need to live another U-turn from freaking Cinderace, right? But as they end up swapping into the Cinderace, now Swalot comes in on a matchup where I'm like, all right, well, now I guess maybe, just maybe, if Swalot can grab a knockout here, I could have the game, because then Hydrapple cleans up the Toedscruel back there. They go for the Pyro Ball. Swalot is able to live, allows me to fire off a Belch, and it's not enough to knock out the Cinderace. Damn, I'm just a little short on damage. Unfortunately, that Belch is not enough to do it, and then it is able to go for another Pyro Ball, and down goes the Swalot. So that Belch would have been extremely satisfying had I gotten the knockout there. But now all I've got left is 1 Hydrapple, who's nearly at full thanks to the regenerator, versus the 2 Mons. Again, they do still have that live Toedscruel in the back. Best thing I can do is just click a Fickle Beam. It covers for a switch. They surely can just go for the U-turn here. We've seen how much it does. At the amount of health I'm at, that does way too much damage. Freaking U-turn is the kicker here. And as they're able to go into the Tentacruel here, or the Toedscruel, I keep calling this thing Tenta. The Tentacruel is gonna die to the Fickle Beam, but sadly, I'm unable to switch out and get another regenerator boost to the old health, and I look like I'm just about in range for a U-turn to knock me out. So final mod, little 1v1 situation, Apple versus Bunny. Who's gonna do it to him? If this thing wasn't heavy duty boots and I had Stealth Rock up, boy would that be nice. But they can just go for the U-turn here, and of course it is gonna be in range to knock me out. So sadly, down goes the Apple, but that was a really good game. Very well played by my opponent there. There's definitely some things that I did wrong in that mid to late game that, you know, solidified that position, but I still thought I had 2 chances to get enough damage there with the Leaf Storm on the Toedscruel and then the Belch on the freaking Cinderace. Sadly, just came up a little bit short, but still the way it goes, and had a fun time with the game anyway. And while this video is running long, you know what, let's bust into one more of them. If there's anybody out there still around, guess what? You got yourself a little bonus match, because this is also another fun one, and I'm determined to get the Blaziken to do some more fun crit action. So look, if you're still here, I appreciate you. And let's just jump into this next game, because why not? All right, so this time, if you thought Landorus was going to be threatened by some ice on turn 1, you would be correct. They end up leading off with the Chien-Poo, who is a diabolical shiny, but I at least can get an Intimidate off, which is honestly pretty helpful against a very scary mon like a Chien-Pao, who of course does get its Sword of Ruin. Fun fact for those new competitive players, since we see that thing's ability activate first, we obviously know it's faster just being a Chien-Pao, but that's a good indication of a mon is going to be faster if their ability activates first, or if they eat leftovers first, or whatever the thing may be, they get theirs off first, so we know it's faster. That's just a little fun fact for you. But of course, as I do not want to switch into an Ice Cold, or stay in on an Ice Cold Crash, I can bring in Tubby. I go into Swalot here because I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go for the Swalot setup early. This thing rarely is going to work, but I'm just going to do it anyway because it could be fun. Now, I am in a spot after the Intimidate where that thing probably does want to switch out. I can go for that Stuffed Cheeks, and boom, just like that, we get a defense boost, and the Starf Berry gets an attack boost. So now we're at +2 defense, +2 attack. And also what's great about the Galvantula switch in is that turn 1 they're gonna go for that sticky web, which is nice. Allows me to fire off a little belch, and hell yeah, it's an easy little 2-hit KO. And while they do pull out the Thunder, I can at least take one because Swalot thick as hell, which it does end up paralyzing me, which is more so just rude. I mean, Swalot's trying his best over here, and we're over here getting hacked. But luckily, a second belch is gonna take care of the Galv, so hey, hell yeah, we love to burp things to death. That's pretty damn satisfying. Now, here's the deal. They end up switching into the Coma-O, and I'm like, you know, this thing is really gonna be really bad if it sets up on me. But as they click the Bitter Malice, the fun part is that immediately tells me that is in fact no Coma-O. That's gonna be the Hisuian Zoroark. So just knowing that this thing is not the Coma-O, I can go into Kamala, who is obviously a Rapid Spinner. Can't go for a Rapid Spin against a Ghost Normal type. But what I can do is be an Assault Vested Koala who takes attacks nicely, and then have a big ol' super effective knockoff on the guy if it's not Focus Sash. So they end up going for the Flamethrower for some reason. Doesn't do much. I'm able to tank that shit and then fire off a little knockoff, smack him with the log, and that is gonna, first of all, kill it, then also reveal its illusion. And now, hell yeah, we're out here in a spot where now I don't have to worry about there being any surprise Zoroarks, and that always feels pretty good. So there's Wise Glasses now on the ground. Gonna go ahead and step on them, and this allows them a revenge switch in, who is gonna bring in the freaking Clodsire. So I'm like, you know what, against the Clodsire, this thing's probably just gonna try to set up its own Stealth Rock. I'm gonna Rapid Spin just because we've got Vantula dead. That's gonna guarantee no more Sticky Web, and to get rid of those, you swipe them bitches up on out of there, and they also are now gonna set up the Stealth Rock, which is funny because now it's like, do I just Rapid Spin again and get rid of the rocks? I'm also thinking what would be really nice here is some damage on the Clodsire. I opt to just go for the knockoff here because I want to get rid of its recovery and its leftovers. So that does do a bit of damage, also gets rid of those leftovers. And here's the fun part, they go for the yawn. People forget that, you know, Kamala is always in a constant state of being yawned and therefore cannot be statused at all. So the yawn fails, we get a free turn from that. And I'm also now just going to Rapid Spin away the rocks again, with also that being in mind, keeping in mind that that amount of damage now puts this thing in range to where a Blaziken Overheat crit should be able to kill it, even if it's like a max special defense set. So just that amount of chip there is really nice. If it's got recover, I guess, you know, so be it. They decide to back up the rocks. They're like, no. These rocks are staying here, but you know, that's fine. I'm not just gonna body slam just to go for my best damage here. And they end up switching into Qianpu once again. Big ol' log of poo. Is this thing even available to be? Is bro hacking? I don't even know. But the body slam's gonna do great damage. Just one day, I'm gonna get a body slam para, and that's gonna be a nice day. Turns out it's not today, but also here's the thing. If I'm this Qianpu looking at a normal type, surely they go for the Sacred Sword here. I'm like, dude, if they Sacred Sword, I can go for the Terra Ghost. It's gonna go right through me. Boom, I can body slam it to death, and just like that, Qianpu taken care of by a freaking Koala. So I go for the Ghost. I'm going Ghost like Danny Phantom out here, but for some reason, for literally no reason at all, it seems like, they go for the Sucker Punch, which is like, the hell are you clicking Sucker Punch? Had I not gone for the Terra, I would have lived the Sucker Punch and been able to knock it out with the Body Slam. But now, since I turned my ass into a Ghost type, I pay the price for trying to make the correct prediction. It ends up biting me in the ass, and I also waste my Terra in the process, which is a sad day. So, you know, that is unfortunate. But at least now I can freely switch into Blaziken, because I'm also looking at it here thinking, I can live pretty much any attack that thing wants to throw at me, right? I'm just going to go ahead and bust out the Focus Energy, because I also maybe just threaten it out, and it does draw in the Clodsire, which is kind of what I was hoping for. So, you know, while Koala is dead back there, its effects are lasting, because now the amount of damage that we have on this Clodsire after a Focus Energy, I should be able to knock this thing out with an Overheat. And honestly, anytime you can kill a Clodsire is a good day, because this thing is annoying as hell. And the Overheat does connect, does knock it out with that crit, and we get that special attack drop that obviously doesn't make a damn difference, but Clodsire goes down, and that's the second piece of poo today that we've had to deal with. Bro's got the Qianpu and the pooper, so, you know, it's solid. So while Blaziken's stacking up the speed boost, we're going to be faster than everything they've got. And as they end up bringing in the Ogerpon Grass Water type, I have a neutral hit on an Overheat here. And looking at it, I'm like, you know what? Even at full health, I think an overheat crit knocks it out. I decide to go for it here. Overheat does connect, and look at that. Absolutely roast. The ogre is going to be able to grab the knockout there with the crit. Just enough damage to where that thing cannot live. Shout out to being part grass type on that. That really helps me out. That takes care of Ogerpon, one of the scariest mons to deal with, and that is incredibly satisfying. That type of kill right there is the exact reason why you use the focus energy Blaziken. So hell yeah, we knock out the ogre, and at this point they go into the Coma-O. Now they've got 2 mons left, and here's the thing. Coma-O is a massive threat. I decide to go for the close combat knowing that it's not going to knock it out. The reason why I do that is because if they freely get up a Clangorous Soul here, I'm in a incredibly bad spot. So I decide to just opt for that big damage. Now, as they finish me off with the Drain Punch, sadly, they're going to, first of all, kill the Blaziken. But what I did was I put the pressure on the thing to where now they can't really freely go for a Clangorous Soul. And also knowing that in the back, I have a Focus Sash Vivillon. Vivian? That should solidify it. So first of all, though, I'm thinking, since they didn't have any setup, I can go into Landorus, who is full health. And while Earth Power is the best thing I can really do, I figure that's kind of fine. It's also going to have to touch me and take some Rocky Helmet. So I go for the Earth Power here. It is going to end up outspeeding as it doesn't have any setup. They end up going for the Iron Head, and just like that, they take some Rocky Helmet. And the main thing I'm worried about mainly was this freaking guy with its option to set up all of its stats for what feels like essentially free. Now it's going to go ahead and die to an Earth Power. So down goes the Coma-O, which is fantastic. And while they've got 1 mon left, their work is not quite done yet. And that is due to the fact that their final mon is this another very scary thing, being the freaking Chien Pao. While, you know, it's nearly dead, my team turns out to not enjoy ice, because everything I've got left dies to an Icicle Crash. And I'm like, oh shit, this could be bad. But what I've got is hopefully a Butterfly that can clutch it out. So first of all, I decide I can switch into the Hydrapple here, essentially just to go down to be able to open the door for the Vivian to come in, because of the fact that Focus Sash might just be the thing that saves me. Now they are going to go for the Terra Ice here. They decide to, I mean, there's no reason not to. Essentially, they go for, spoilers, it is Terra Ice, just to boost up that Icicle Crash even further. But, you know, this Apple being 4 times weak to that is certainly just staring down insanely scary death. Now they are just going to click the Ice Shard, going to bust out the priority with his now little snowflake hat, and yeah, that's going to certainly take care of me. So down goes Hydrapple, but it did its job. I basically switched that thing in to die, because now my win condition becomes, thank God they don't have any Stealth Rock up, and shout out to the Rapid Spin earlier, because I can come in, I have my Focus Sash intact, and all I've got to do is connect on a Hurricane, which with Compound Ice is a very likely chance to connect on it. So they do go for the Ice Shard here, gonna be able to bust out that priority. They're probably like, hell yeah, I've done it. Nope, Focus Sash, baby, I'm able to live. And that is why we carried the Rapid Spin, because now I can go for the Hurricane here. It is gonna connect, and that is gonna be able to finish off the Chien Pao. And the funniest part is they also just turned their game off. Just like, I don't know why you do that on the very last turn. Could have waited about 6 seconds, would have been out of it, but that's more funny that it happens out that way. And that is gonna do it for the end of the video. So the Butterfly comes in clutch, and that was an interesting game there. So thank you guys very much for watching. This is a very long one. I don't know if you guys enjoy these long ones, let me know. But thank you guys. I will catch you next time. Peace out.